YouTube Ozick going the Goat House is back with some updated power rankings here in NFL Week 5. We do this video every single Tuesday. We also got plenty of predictions, score predictions, fantasy videos keeping you guys involved here. So please subscribe. Trying to reach that 60K goal. We much appreciate if you could subscribe. Follow that Twitter, keeping you guys up to date with the channel and constantly talking about football on there. Live tweeting pretty much every single game all year long. Link down below for that. We have an Instagram, we have a podcast, and we have a Patreon. Here we are with the Week 5 power rankings. Update these every single week, like I said. So they're not predictions. I update these as we go here. So if your team continues to win, they'll climb. If they lose, they'll go down. If they're impressive, if they're looking really good, that can obviously help them climb. I like to remind people, these are not predictions. I'm not predicting the end of the year with these power rankings. They're not playoff predictions, so they're weekly updated power rankings. Also wouldn't focus on head-to-head matchup because there's 32 teams we're comparing here, so resumes definitely matter. And if you see a team climb up, go down, how many spots they moved up, down, or didn't move, don't really pay attention to that one team. Kind of pay attention to what's going on around them. Again, 32 teams here, not just one, not just about your favorite team. But before we get started with the power rankings, we have a Patreon. We're constantly adding more to that. We have junior score predictions on there. My locks of the week. We're adding some upsets if you're trying to look for some money line picks. That's what we're adding starting this week as well. That is separate from the locks, but they're both on the Patreon. College football score predictions. We'll do some money line picks for college football as well. Updated playoff predictions. Here we are in Week 5. We'll start those in a couple weeks here, and then we'll continue to predict those every single week. Some extra content will always be added. Discord access, much more. Patreon.com/thegoathouse. Link down below. Much appreciated. You can check it out. The power rankings. The Jets remain at number 32. Wow, what a shocker. They had a chance to beat the Broncos. But I felt like they did definitely get outplayed, and they still remain with 0 wins. They are beat up quite a bit. We'll see what goes on with Darnold here. He could miss this week. I'm excited to – we'll see, but if Denzel Mims is coming back, I'm pretty excited about that. I like Denzel Mims a lot. Maybe we can give them a boost, but – yeah, they remain here at the bottom at 32. It's really not too much of a surprise here. The Giants at 31, not much of a surprise. They had a chance to beat the Rams, I suppose. I felt like the Rams controlled that game, pretty much the whole time. The Rams, I don't think, offensively, I keep saying it, but I felt like they were kind of half-assing it. They weren't going all out with their game plan. And the Giants actually ran the ball okay with limited number of reps, I guess, runs. And they were in the game the whole time, so it's not like they were trying to play catch-up, really. So I thought they could have ran the ball a little more, and that could have got them a shot, but the Rams did control the game there. Again, it's kind of a positive and negative for the Rams, because we'll talk about that when we get to the Rams, I guess. But 31 for the Giants, no surprise. Down 5 spots is the Falcons, and it's weird seeing the Falcons down here with these teams, and it's not really just because of their record. But I guess the way they're playing, too. They've played harder teams than some other teams, obviously. I talked about before the season that the Falcons probably have the hardest schedule in football, and that seems to be the case. But bottom line is they're really not playing good football. Yeah, they got some injuries piling up, but, so do a lot of teams. They just played the Packers with a bunch of injuries, too. They're missing their top 2 receivers. Aaron Jones seemed to even limit in that game. Kenny Clark's the best nose tackle in football. He's out of the game. They had some guys going out, and the game really wasn't even close. I know the Packers are a really good team, but it was just a very poor performance on both sides of the ball for the Falcons, and they don't have a win. They choked some leads against teams that maybe they should have beat. You could argue, I guess. So there's enough there on their resume, enough poor play to put them down with the Giants and the Jets. Not quite as lower than them, but they're down 5 spots to 30. Pretty wild here. 29 is going to be the Jags, back down to kind of where they started pretty much. And that's kind of what I expected to happen here. A Bengals team, it was a pretty good matchup for the Jags. Even though I picked the Bengals just because I think they're the better team, it was a pretty good matchup for the Jags, and they really couldn't get anything going on either side of the ball. I guess late they were pushing the ball on offense, but game felt pretty much out of reach at that point. So kind of just going back down, on that 3-game losing streak, really haven't looked impressive, and, besides that first win there. Maybe a little bit of offense in week 2, but teams are figuring out a game plan for them, which really isn't that hard. This is kind of where we expect them to be, and it's okay because they're still in that rebuild process. They gathered a lot of draft picks, so they got the Texans this week, so that could be one that they can kind of possibly make their way up on a little bit if they can win, a very winnable game as well. Washington's down 2 spots at 28. Another team on a 3-game losing streak. I guess a tough game against the Ravens. The game was kind of over, before it even started. But they shown some, there was some impressive moments. Besides maybe the 4th down check down or getting anything going early, Haskins was okay. Antonio Gibson, that's a bright spot. McLaurin's a bright spot. The defense made some plays here and there, but this got beat by a much better team. So Washington's down 2 spots after a 3-game losing streak. 27 is the Texans, a team that doesn't have a win, so you could argue they could be down there with those other teams, but and it's pretty tight. I did move them down 5 spots. It did put them to 27. They made the right move getting Bill O'Brien out of there, but will it be fixed with a different coach? I don't know if it'll really be fixed, because I think the main issue was what went on in the last couple offseasons. I guess what went on in the front office, which was Bill O'Brien. I don't know who's going to take over at that duties there, but there's not too much they can do, front office wise, or I guess trades, signings, obviously. Not too much they can do to turn things around this year. There are things they can do. That would be to trade pieces away for picks, but that wouldn't help them here with what's going on with them in the season. They're down 5 spots. Another team that's lost some good teams. At least they stuck in there. We don't know if the Vikings are a good team. They really haven't been this year, but the rest of the teams, I guess they stuck in there with the Vikings. They had a chance to win. They had a chance to beat the Steelers. I guess that's something positive. You got to try to find something positive with these bad teams down here right now. Bottom line is I just don't think they're playing. Even though they have 0 wins, you could argue they're playing better ball, and actually a couple of teams below them with the 1 win, but it's pretty darn close there. They're at 27, must win this week. 26, the Broncos, they're up 3 spots. The Broncos team that we saw on Thursday night very well could be maybe the 31st team in football, 30th maybe. In terms of talent, they got the win, and it's mainly because they're beat up. The Broncos are supposed to be a good team, mainly because they're beat up, but they went out there, got a win. I thought they outplayed the Jets, not by a lot, but I thought they outplayed the Jets for the most part, and they actually almost lost that game. It's because the poor quarterback play, but they went out there and kind of did their job, and they still got some impact players there. Now they could get Drew Lock back, maybe they can get some other guys back, Phillip Lindsay, etc. there, but so they could get better. A team that has higher hopes. The injuries kind of killed it, but they are up 3 spots, but nothing to get too nothing to overreact about the Jets win. Couldn't move them up really any more than that. Number 25 is going to be the Miami Dolphins, down 4 spots. After an impressive win against the Jags, it was the Jags, so another one you can't overreact too much. But then now this past week, lose to the Seahawks, and it's weird, a game that they kind of were in while they were playing pretty sloppy ball on offense, mainly Fitzpatrick. But a game they were kind of in still, so I don't know what to make of that one. End of the day, they're coming off a loss, and still, I think this is probably where they fit in for this year so far, based on their team, based on their performances. But still think they could be a sneaky team, could upset some teams here going forward, but we'll see. That's kind of just an assumption. 24, the Lions down 5 spots. A typical Lions game against the Saints here. They start out 14-0. They started out big against the Bears. It took them a little bit to get going against the Bears, but they were up big at one point, and they started out 14-0 against the Packers. I think it was 14-3 for a decent amount of time. And they did the same thing here against the Saints, and then the Saints just completely dominated them the rest of the way. Even though the score may show it was somewhat close, the Saints just completely outplayed them. So the Lions, pretty disappointing, down 5 spots. They had some moments on offense, but I thought they were kind of disappointing on offense too. But mainly on defense there. And it's kind of getting that time where Patricia needs to go, because he's a defensive-minded guy, and he can't get the defense going. Sure, the talent isn't there, but that's really on him as well. I guess some of those things we don't really know is how much control the coach has over what a guy like Bob Quinn decides to pick, but they got to be on the same page. Maybe they're not on the same page, which, again, would be a negative thing either way. But the Lions, the Saints are still a pretty good team despite their record, but down 5 spots. Some sloppy play from the Lions there in Week 4. 23 is the Chargers. Couldn't move the Chargers down. Could have moved up, actually, because they had even for losing, because they had a pretty impressive game. But yeah, didn't move them anywhere. Defense is pretty beat up. They didn't play too good of a game. Kind of allowed a comeback there. A couple turnovers allowed it to happen as well. But they were able to move the ball on offense, play against a pretty good Bucs team, a team that I think is pretty good on both sides of the ball. So in a way, the Chargers were kind of impressive. And it's a team I talked about it in one of the videos yesterday on Monday that the Chargers are a team that could do that. You know, they're a team like the Chiefs game, like the Bucks game, even though they didn't win. They're a team that definitely could upset some teams there. And it's because they're a tough game plan. You know, you don't know how to game plan for this offense yet. You don't know what the identity is. You don't know, you know, 1 second they look like they want to play small ball, quick, you know, roll out, and the next second they're just airing the ball out downfield, which they're pretty good at doing now. So you don't really, it's tough to game plan against them right now. Maybe some teams will start to catch on as the year goes on there. So the Chargers are, yeah, that's kind of a definition of a sneaky team at this time here heading into week 5. So the Chargers stay at 23, almost pulled off against the Bucks. That would have really boosted them up. But at the end of the day, they're on a 3-game losing streak here. The Bengals are up 8 spots, up to number 22. And this is where, you know, the Chargers beat the Bengals in week 1, so I know I'm going to get the comments, and that'll happen a lot this year. I got it last year. I'll get the comments that the Chargers beat the Bengals. You know, how is this possible? Well, it's not a Chargers and Bengals power rankings. It's a 32. It's an NFL power ranking, 32 teams. You know, keep in mind, you know, the Colts lost to the Jags this year. Keep in mind of games like that. You know, last year my example was the Browns lost to, or the Browns beat the Ravens. You know, head to head doesn't really matter all that much. Also, keep in mind the Bengals are fresh off a win, pretty impressive performance. Keep in mind the Chargers are on a 3-game losing streak there. Bengals up to number 22, up 8 spots there. I'd say another sneaky team because that offense is pretty good defensive performance as well. And a young team that can continue to get better. They're up to 22. 21's the Eagles, up 6 spots. Mainly up because they did win, but mainly up because a lot of these teams, see the Chargers, you can't really move up. The Lions got to go down. Dolphins got to go down. The Broncos, you can't move up too much there. All these other teams are on their way down. That's the main reason they're moving up. Still really not an impressive game. I think the Niners kind of outplayed them for the most part. You know, a couple picks really changed the game. So still not really impressed at all with the Eagles. But a win in where they're at here in the power rankings definitely moves them up here. So they're up 6 spots. The Vikings are going to go up 8 spots. They go from 28 to 20. A must-win situation. They played an 0-3 Texans team that's struggling. But once again, the Vikings offense actually looked pretty impressive, you know, minus the Colts game this year. You know, but another impressive offensive performance. So it's really their defense that's kind of letting them down. But yeah, maybe they're on the right track here. But yeah, kind of like the Eagles, mainly a lot of teams got to move down, and they're fresh off a win, so they're moving up quite a bit. A little more impressive, the Vikings and the Eagles there. So that's why they're up 8 spots. But mainly the movement there with those last few teams is because the other teams just have to move down below them based on their performances, what's going on. 19's the Cardinals. They're down 5 spots. 2 in a row they lost. And not only that, we've seen some teams that lost 3 in a row, you know, but they're just very disappointing losses, too. 2 games you expect them to win. But you know they could lose those games. It's very possible. But 2 games you almost expect them to win. Could the Cardinals be that team that teams are figuring out? You know, it took a couple weeks, you know, last year and a couple weeks this year for teams to be able to game plan them, kind of get an identity on them. And now they're losing games you really don't expect to lose. If they lose one of them, it's okay. But losing both, 2 disappointing performances. The Panthers game didn't even seem close. Like, it felt like they never even had a shot in that game, which is pretty odd. You know, even at the start, I think they were down 14-0. You kind of look back to the first week against the Niners, a good Niners team in week 1. Cardinals took a little bit of time to get going on offense, and that was the difference. They got going, and they won the game. So in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking that, and they really couldn't get much going there. There's a lack of running game. There's a lack of separation from receivers besides Hopkins. Even Hopkins, probably because he was hurt a little bit. You know, so there's just, and they couldn't get any pass rush, which was surprising against the Panthers O-line. So very, very disappointing, and that's why they're on the fall here, down 5 spots to number 19 for the Cardinals. So they better turn the Jets this week. Chance to turn it around. You know, that not really a game that, you know, it's not the best situation. It's a good situation for the Cardinals to kind of get the morale up, the momentum up. In terms of the power rankings, you know, you win that game, it's not going to help you a whole bunch. If you lose that game, you're going to plummet from it. So it's an absolute must-win there. 18's the Cowboys. Interesting one here. You may say, how do the Cowboys not move down? Disappointing loss to the Browns. Their defense looks disastrous. And I agree. You know, just, you know, think, you know, in a way, thinking about it, you know, just thinking about a team after the game, you'd think the Cowboys probably should move down. But you see what's kind of going on around them. I know I couldn't really find any room to move them down here. I think they still belong ahead of these teams. The Cardinals actually have 1 more win than them. But looking at their last 2 losses, like I said, extremely, extremely disappointing. You know, extremely. The Cowboys, I'm still very much impressed with their offense. Not Not impressed with their offensive line, not impressed with some turnovers, but they are still one of the more high-powered offenses in the league. So that is, in a negative situation here, you can pull a positive from there. They have played some pretty darn good teams as well. So, I mean, these aren't major positives, but when you got to start splitting hairs with teams around here, that would be the reason they didn't move down. They're on a little bit of a losing streak. Seahawks and Browns, the Vikings and Eagles are fresh off a win at least, but I'm just still more impressed with the Cowboys, honestly. So that's why I couldn't move them down. It's a tough situation there. 17's the Raiders. They're down 4 spots. Yeah, much like the Cardinals, they're on a 2-game losing streak. A little different, though, because I'm still a little more impressed with the Raiders. And look at who they play. They played the Patriots and the Bills, 2 teams that are very solid. Keep in mind they played those teams at full strength while the Raiders were beat up, too. But I don't really factor that in too much. It's updated power rankings every week. What happened, happened. It happened. But yeah, the resume looks okay. Those are pretty good losses, which I don't know if there's such thing as a good loss. But if you had to split hairs with these teams here, if you had to just kind of nitpick between the teams, and they've had their moments, they've had their good moments here. But at the end of the day, they're on a 2-game losing streak, and now they got to play the Chiefs this week. They're down 4 spots, and the Panthers are up. They keep on climbing after 2 weeks. They're up to 16, and it'll kind of come up again probably in the comments that the Raiders, people are going to be crazy. They're going to be mind blown. The Raiders beat the Panthers. Yes, they beat them in week 1, close game. Since then, Panthers kind of going up, Raiders going down. You see who's hot, who's cold. I think that plays a part power rankings. Panthers playing really good ball right now. And keep in mind, 32 teams. I'm comparing 32. I'm not comparing 2. Panthers are up 4 spots. They're playing some good ball. Teddy Bridgewater, love what I'm seeing from Teddy Bridgewater. I was probably higher than anybody on the planet on him out of Louisville. So and he looked really good in Minnesota. So I'm really excited to see him going. His movement in the pocket, his ability to get outside the pocket, his ability to run downfield because of athleticism. But I think it's mainly, the jukes he puts on are pretty impressive. But he's a very smart runner, and you see him throwing the ball downfield, making more big plays than people expect him to. Seems like Robbie Anderson is his guy. No Christian McCaffrey in there. In the defense, on paper, this is supposed to be one of the worst defenses in football. There's a reason they drafted all defense, but they're picking it up. I credit the coaching staff, man. The coaching staff's looking really good. But that young stud and Derek Brown, Brian Burns is looking really good. Even though on paper defense doesn't look that great, the defensive line looks pretty good. It looks pretty darn good. Even on paper, it looks pretty solid. So impressed with the Panthers right now. Up 4 spots. 16 versus 30. It's not an easy one. Division rival there. The Falcons do have some offense. They may be able to push the ball on the Panthers defense. That is an important win for both teams. Important game for both teams there. So excited about this Panthers team right now. Very impressed. 15's the Niners, down 6 spots. And here's what it's tough because the Niners aren't full strength. And I thought they actually outplayed the Eagles. Quarterback. It's hard to say that because you can't throw that many turnovers and outplay your opponent. But I felt like they outplayed him for most of the game. Nick Mullins kind of beat the Niners. I feel like in a way. That's my opinion though. But still was sloppy ball. Wasn't great ball, but there's some bright spots. I like McKinnon. Ayuk, really like Ayuk. Some bright spots there. But yes, they're injured. Yes, fluky things happen. But what happened. You have to factor in other teams as well. I got to move other teams up for impressive moments or wins. They go together. So the Niners are down 6 spots. And I think people will I'm guessing, just based on the comments I've gathered over the years, I kind of got a feel for people. Some people probably won't be happy with the down 6. And I don't think it's really fair to put what the Niners did or what's been happening with that 6. Again, it's more of what's going on, ahead of them now. Other teams that I felt like had to move up here. So that's where you have to focus. 14's the Bears. Only down 2 spots. A very disappointing game. Defense played pretty well. Disappointing on offense. Looked a little messy. It almost like Foles wasn't ready for that in a way. It felt like he was ready to get thrown against the Falcons. I do think the Falcons have the worst defense in football, so maybe that's it. But a little sloppy, not a well-coached game at all by Matt Nagy. But they still only have 1 loss, and you can't move them down any further than that. You may feel like that based on their performance, specifically their offense, but You can't move them down below some of these other teams that I have below them. So I had the Bears at 14. Very big game against the Buccaneers on Thursday. That is in Soldier Field prime time. Excited for that one. 13's the Saints. They're up 4 spots. They're going to make their way back up. I'm confident about that. But again, these aren't end of the year predictions. That's an assumption. That's a prediction that I think they'll make their way back up week by week here. But they are up 4 spots. Impressive win against the Lions. Even though it's the Lions, they purely dominated that game. Starting down 14-0's a little sloppy. You could take that as a negative thing, but coming back just because you're just plain and simple, you're the better team with some dominant performances. You see Breeze opening things up downfield, getting that touch pass downfield going. So there are some good things that you take away here. Up 4 spots, even though they have 2 losses still, they're up to 13. We'll see if they can keep on climbing. 12's the Patriots, down 4 spots. Another one where, they didn't have Cam, and they actually put up a fight with the Chiefs. Putting up a fight with the Chiefs, the final score may not show what actually happened in that game. They had a chance to win that game. They were actually close to winning that game, despite what the score says. So that was impressive. So another one of those situations where do they deserve to move down 4 spots? It's not really they deserve to move down 4 spots. It's some other teams need to move up. At the end of the day, they lost the game, and it was a winnable game. Even without Cam, it was a winnable game. There was some mistakes in there, but. They end up moving down 4 spots. Another team. They do have 2 losses at the end of the day. So to the Seahawks and the Chiefs, though. But another team that could move its way back up. They get Cam back. We'll see. 11 is going to be the Colts, up 5 spots. Colts all right here, just on the fringe of being top 10. Starting the year off, losing the Jaguars, and that's why you can't really take anything away or predict the future off week 1. I always say it for things like that. Since then, the Colts have been on a streak, mainly because their defense. This defense has been top tier. Will it continue to play this way? We're going to see here what happens when they play a very good offense. We're going to learn here, and they're playing the Browns this week, which is going to be a really good game, offense versus defense. So the Colts defense has been extremely, extremely impressive. Yesterday's 2 videos, I kind of talked about the Colts defense. Why is it so good? They have 2 stud players, Darius Leonard and DeForest Buckner. That helps. The rest of it is kind of, everyone was kind of iffy on it in the offseason, but these are a bunch of junkyard dogs here. These are a bunch of guys that love to play. They want to play high motor, gang tackling, tight coverage, and this is what I was preaching yesterday. Credit to the coaching staff, well-disciplined, well-coached, well-prepared. And I actually noticed last night that Bucky Brooks, almost word for word, Bucky Brooks of NFL Network tweeted almost the same exact thing. So I was glad to see that he saw that too. So, a great knowledgeable NFL guy there. We're on the same page there. I don't know if I can respect anything more than that type of defense. Guys just flying around the field. Very smart defense. So, big game against the Browns. Colts, the weird thing about the Colts is their offense. Their offense hasn't done much, but it can't really be a knock on the Colts because not like a big knock or anything on them because they haven't really needed to do much. You take like the Vikings game, the defense was taking control. They were getting them good field position. Yeah, maybe a perfect scenario. You wish the Colts would have punched the ball more. The defense was scoring against the Jets. They didn't really need their offense to step up big. The Bears game, the defense was controlling the game. Yeah, Rivers missed some throws, but the score really won't show it. The Colts dominated that game. They controlled that game. So the offense hasn't really needed to do a whole bunch. But I guess to get them in the top 10, in an offensive league, I wish I was a little more impressed with the offense. But it's definitely not a knock on them. We kind of just need to see more from that offense, a true test here against the Browns. We'll need to get some offense going. But very, very impressed with that defense there. They're the number 11. Really excited. We'll talk about the Browns in a second. Really excited about that game. That's a game. That's going to be a ball game. The Rams are up 1 spot to number 10. I talked also about the Giants. I was going to come back here and talk about the Rams. I truly feel, I talked about in the recap, that the Rams kind of half-assed that offensive game plan. They didn't go full go. They were kind of giving the ball to Malcolm Brown a little more. Nothing downfield, really. I felt like they thought they were going to waltz in there and beat the Giants just by taking it easy, and they were kind of right. So it's a positive and a negative. It kind of keeps in the back of your mind, like, what were they doing? Are we going to see that again? But in a way, I truly believe they kind of took it easy and still won the game. I actually like this team on both sides of the ball. They're impressing me on both sides of the ball, and they have extra juice on that offense than we saw. I'm confident they do than what we saw in that Giants game. Defense pretty impressive. You get that interior pressure, and you have a secondary that can make plays. So somewhat of a balanced team there in the Rams. I can be impressed with both sides. So they're number 10, back up 1 spot. If they would have beat the Bills last week, they would be way up there. So that was a close one. Number 9 is going to be the Browns. Weird seeing the Browns in the top 10 up to, yes, number 9, up 6 spots. Extremely impressed with this offense. Well, they have the talent. We all knew they had the talent. Anybody can see it. We all knew it. Every single one of us. They have it. But were they going to put it together? That was kind of the question. And that's why he was kind of iffy on. That's why everyone was kind of iffy on the Browns. So they have impressed. They have surprised a little bit. Play calling's great. The system's great for Baker, for the running backs. Chubb's been great. He's going to miss somewhere around 6 weeks, so that's unfortunate. But luckily, Kareem Hunt is still, he might be one of the better backs in football. So that's great. Odell is playing like vintage Odell, Jarvis Landry. They got the guys here. They got a couple tight ends that can play. Like I said, Baker's playing good. Defense isn't supposed to be, that good. I still don't think it's that good, but it's been playing better than expected. They're showing up at the right moments. Other, younger guys, under the radar guys are stepping up, but then the not so under the radar guys, Myles Garrett being one of the very best defensive players in football, and that's just a game changer, impact player. That's why you can get away with being weaker in some other spots, mainly due to injury for the Browns. But that's why you can get away with being weaker in some other spots if you have that game changer, that big-time playmaker up front. And that's why I always talk about the pass rush, whether it's edge or interior, is the most important thing on the defense, because you can get away with having weaker things in the back end. But then they got a guy like Denzel Ward who can step up and make plays back there as well. So offense, obviously deserving to be a top 10 in an offensive league. And the defense is stepping up at times. Still not, extremely confident about the defense, but I'm impressed. Big time win against the Cowboys, up 6 spots. The Browns continue to climb. 9 versus 11, Browns versus Colts. Offense versus defense. I should say defense at offense, Colts at Browns. It's a weird game to be this excited about, but we've been picking games for every single year. I feel like I do a really good job. This is one of the hardest games to pick, so I am extremely excited for that game. That's got to be the game of the week, in my opinion. Moving on to 8, we got the Buccaneers up 2 spots here. For the Buccaneers, in a way, there's some negatives and some positives and negatives from the Chargers game. I guess the negative is it was a little bit of a scare. There was some sloppy play. Brady pick 6. The defense, they struggled. They didn't really know, and that's why I talked about the Chargers, how they almost sneaked away with the Chiefs in the Bucs game. It's a really hard game plan. Herbert just getting in there. It almost feels like the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. You don't know how to game plan for this team. You don't really know what to expect. So I'm not taking a knock here on the Bucs for that. That pick 6 really shifted things, and they were able to overcome it. They were able to come back in a crazy burst of offense because they're a good team, and they're just a much better team. They're kind of like we talk about the Saints and the Lions. So impressive game from Tom Brady. Very impressive game from the offensive line, specifically Tristan Wirfs. No sacks for Brady against a pretty good pass rush there in the Chargers. And defense, not the best game, but I'm not really too worried. It was a game plan and a matchup mismatch there, I thought. So both sides of the ball, I am still, looking at the resume, very much impressed. And this is a team I'm predicting, so I'm not going to give them bonus points for this, but predicting to get better as the season goes on. So the fact that they're playing like this now, winning these games, they're on a 3-game winning streak, is a good thing, definitely a good thing. So they're up 2 spots there, heading into 8 versus 14, heading to Chicago Thursday night football. Big one there. 7's the Ravens. We got to go fast with this. 7's the Ravens. Still a team you kind of expect to be at the top when it's all said and done. A little sloppy loss last week against the Chiefs. Pick it back up against the Washington team. That's really not enough to boost them up, though. But they'll make their way back up again. Time will tell for these power rankings. 6 remains the Titans. They didn't play this week, but still an undefeated team. Still a team that pretty impressive. They're actually impressive on offense. So they play the Bills this week if the game is played, which I expect it to. It is a huge game for both teams there. I talked about the Browns Colts game of the week. That might be the game of the week too. You could argue a couple. 5's gonna be the Steelers. They were supposed to play the Titans. I was looking for that 5-6 matchup. Steelers right now, in my opinion, Colts may have it statistically. I still think the Steelers have the best defense in all of football, and their offense has been able to make some noise, move the ball as well. So they've been impressive this year. Slight knock on the Steelers Titans. They haven't really played the best team, so we need to see more of a test there. But overall, I've been impressed there. So Steelers remain at 5. 4 is going to be the Bills. This is a team that, it feels like a number 1 team. It feels like a number 1 team here. But they're at number 4. That's how good some of these top teams are here in the NFL right now. So good to see. I love the Bills game. This is definitely a contender. Josh Allen's been extremely impressive. Stephon Diggs might just be the best receiver in the NFL through 4 weeks. They got so much speed. They're so tough to, you can watch film and kind of expect things, but it's so tough to game plan. There's such a variety to their playbook. Very hard to stop. Defense has been giving up a little more points than we would think maybe, but they've been making big time plays, and their last couple games have been impressive wins there for the Bills. So they're at number 4, but again, it does feel like it's a top 4 team. That's what you call them, because you can argue that they're 1, 2, or 3 in a way as well. It's just tough to move down teams like this, like the Seahawks. I actually thought about it because I'm so impressed with the Bills. But then I can't I can't use impress. Sometimes I can't let that switch these teams. I can't really let the Seahawks go down because I was already impressed with the Seahawks, and I'm more impressed with the Bills now. So I can't let that skew kind of judgment here. There's no reason for the Seahawks to move down. Defense has been a little disappointing, but that offense could be the best in football here. You can argue with a couple other teams, debatable, but really no reason to move them down there. And then to the Packers, got some guys hurt, got some guys beat up, and they still take care of business on Monday night against the Falcons. A game they should take care of business on, but still impressive. That game really wasn't close at all. It was kind of over from the start. So another impressive performance. And it's just like the Packers, Seahawks, Bills, teams that feel like number 1 teams, but there's just no reason to move these teams down. I got the Chiefs at 1. The Chiefs did play pretty sloppy against the Patriots. That secondary gave them a run. They still were able to overcome it. I have to wonder if Cam Newton played, the Patriots could have won that game. But they end up finishing. I think if a team's really knocking on the door, then they start to give you this next level of play calling, but next level of play as well. And I think we kind of saw that in the Patriots game. So this is not enough there to move the Chiefs down. Also on their resume, that big-time win against the Ravens last week. So that also helps not being able to move a team like that down. But, those top 4 teams, I know 5 and 6 are undefeated as well. And I know the Ravens are a top-tier team as well, but those top 4 teams are playing like number 1 teams in football right now. So I'm excited to see them. The Bills play the Titans. That's 4 versus 6. That's a pretty good one to add to your resume, especially what the Bills been doing this last few weeks. So that can give them a boost. That might be enough to jump these teams. Even if I feel like I can't move a team down because they've been so good, it might just be enough if they're that impressive. So games like that. Seahawks versus Vikings, actually a pretty good game as well. I think both offenses match up pretty well against the opposing defense. So even though it's 3 versus 20, a dominant win against the Vikings actually could be impressive. Packers do have a bye. We'll see what happens here. But yeah, if you want your team to move up, they got to continue to win, and they will move up. They got to impress, they got to dominate, then they'll move up there for sure. But that's the Week 5 power rankings. Excited for this week. A lot of good games. We got our picks tonight, Tuesday night. Got our score predictions on Wednesday. Plenty of other videos on the way. You're going to want to follow that Twitter. You want to subscribe, smash that like button, turn notifications on. We much appreciate if you can help us out. That is going to do it for this one, though. Thanks everyone for watching. Goodbye.